This video is sponsored by Brilliant. The first 200 to use the link in the description get 20% off their annual premium subscription. Imagine the perfect cattle grazing pasture. Blue skies, green grass shared by everyone. Of course, it can still only support so many cows. If the farmers were smart, they'd figure out how many and divide that among them. But that's a big if, because the incentives are all wrong. More likely, everyone would act in their own best interest, bringing more and more cows until they destroyed the land, and no one could use it. This is the tragedy of the commons. When resources are shared but limited, people will act selfishly and ruin it for everyone. It happens in public parks, traffic, and fishing. But sometimes the opposite happens, and that's the story of patents. Instead of land, it's ideas. And the problem is not that everything is shared, it's that nothing is. Big companies claim everything they lay their eyes on. They patent the process of making decisions, rounding rectangles, even, if you can believe it, filing patents. You name it, someone technically owns it. Maybe you don't plan on using it, but at least you can stop your competitors. And what's a few $1,000s in filing fees to a company making $265 billion a year? But all this ownership leaves little room for innovation. Just imagine how hard it would be to design a new smartphone today without violating anyone's patents. Good luck. Even if you could somehow figure out which ones you needed to license, which is already a stretch, it would simply be far too expensive. We think of invention as a sudden flash of inspiration, but usually big ideas are just one improvement on the last, or some new combination. Smartphones, for example, are a bunch of different ideas put together. And I mean a bunch. Google's chief legal officer says they might be susceptible to as many as 250,000 patent claims. That's a mess. All of this means that patents can be not just ineffective, but actually counterproductive. So what's the solution? How can we encourage innovation in a way that, actually works? There are two ways to look at patents. First, as a right. Creating things takes time and effort. If you paint a picture or write a story, it belongs to you. So why should inventions be any different? Physically or otherwise, no one wants to be stolen from. This is why we use the term intellectual property. It's no different than a house or a car, which I'd argue is kind of true. A patent can be bought, sold, licensed, or abandoned. But if ideas are simply property, the inventor of a life-saving drug could just decide not to share it. And if companies deserve monopolies over their creations, we're stuck with the system we have. Sure, in theory, we could adjust it, shorten the length of patents from 20 to 10 or 5 or even 2 years, ban patent trolls, or be more selective about which patents are approved. All of these would be a huge help, but they wouldn't solve the fundamental problem. To do that, we need to view them not as a right, but a trade. You and I promise to give companies a temporary monopoly, and they invest the time and money to make the products we want. But we're being ripped off. We're often giving a monopoly when a company would have made their product anyway. In other words, we're trading a lot for really nothing in return. Would Apple stop making iPhones if they couldn't file patents? They might make less money, but they'd almost certainly still be profitable. Even with copycats, they could stand out with things like better engineering talent and marketing. How do we know this? Because it's already true. Xiaomi makes every attempt to replicate products like the iPhone, but I'd say Apple is still doing okay. Or look at Lego, whose patents expired in 2011, but still makes billions of dollars. If anything, losing them made the company more innovative by giving it better competition. Of course, this isn't always true. A pharmaceutical company, for example, may truly need patents to protect its investment. But the goal is to give them just enough incentive, and not $1 more. And that exact amount varies by industry. Which brings us to the wonderful world of software patents. From the outside, you may not think it's any different. An invention is an invention, whether it's made of gears or ones and zeros. But you'd be wrong. With software, the problems are 10 times worse. They account for 75% of all troll lawsuits and are twice as likely to be litigated. Here's the difference. A physical invention can easily be described as its parts. A ballpoint pen, for example, can be patented as a tube, an ink reservoir, and a rotating ball. But a digital one, of course, is made of code. And because there are many ways to program the same function, it wouldn't make sense to patent specific lines of code. Someone could just slightly change it. And besides, that's already protected by copyright. So instead, software patents usually describe less a process or method and more an idea or function. That's the difference between patenting toy bricks which stack using cylindrical grooves and the idea of connecting two objects. The latter sounds ridiculous. No one should own such a basic concept, but it happens all the time in software. The other difference is that unlike, say, pharmaceuticals, software development is dirt cheap. Because nothing is manufactured, there's no limit to its scale. When Instagram was bought by Facebook for $1 billion, it employed only 13 people. And WhatsApp had 55 when it was bought for $20 billion. What matters is speed. A brand new software startup can beat the biggest companies on the planet if it moves fast enough. Which means by the time a patent is granted, it may no longer be relevant. Compare this with government, whose strength is being slow and methodical, and you can see why it doesn't mix so well with tech. So if patents are really a trade and different industries require different incentives, it only makes sense to negotiate individually. Why should the inventor of a buy now button be granted just as long a monopoly as the creator of a drug that took years and years of research? The solution is a prize system, where the first inventor gets a check, not a monopoly. This way, companies compete, lower prices, and make their products more accessible. Not in 20 years when their patent expires, but today. Many new companies would finally have a fighting chance. And as a nice cherry on top, patent trolls would be eliminated overnight. Of course, there are some challenges. We'd need a system for determining what kind of inventions require a prize. And that money would have to come from somewhere, which probably means your favorite higher taxes. Again, it's not perfect, but it need only be 1% better than what we have, and that's already a pretty low bar. So if such a simple solution exists, why aren't we using it? For one, because the companies that benefit most from patents are the ones with money to lobby for them. And because many people just don't know much about economics. There just isn't much awareness. But patents and the stock market are really economic games. And with today's sponsor, Brilliant, you can learn the hidden mathematical rules to better understand them. It teaches concepts like game theory, economic statistics, and tons of other topics on science, math, and computer science. Unlike your professor, Brilliant understands that people learn by doing, not just memorizing over and over again. So you'll solve riddles, play with graphs, and answer challenges as you progress through the lessons. To get started or dive deeper into the world of math, science, and technology, go to brilliant.org/polymatter and sign up today for free. The first 200 people to use that link will also get 20% off the annual premium subscription. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and as always, to you for listening.